Ranieri tries one!
You know, I thought we looked pretty decent against AC Milan, but it turns out we did so well that Alexander Isak is leaving Newcastle because he doesn't want to play us on Sunday. This is not that kind of Gooner, an Arsenal podcast, and we are coming to you after Arsenal's 1-0 win against AC Milan in Singapore, and I guess the loss in the meaningless penalty shootout that came after that. And yeah, preseason is off to a pretty good start. We're up and running. New season's right around the corner, honestly, which is really crazy to say. But yeah, you know, things are moving in that direction. So this episode is mainly focused around a conversation I had with AJ from the Atlanta United Fans TV about Gabriel Heinze and his arrival at Arsenal, what he'll bring. But, you know, just real quick, before we get into that, you know, there are a couple news items to get into. And while hopefully some combination of myself, John, and Drew will be able to chat more about that in depth when we record on Saturday next, you know, I just kind of wanted to talk about a few things first, or, you know, talk about now before we get into, you know, the main crux of the pod. So the first thing, right, is the match. And this is the first chance that we've had to see Martin Zubimendi and Kepa and Christian Norgard, and they looked very impressive. Oh, and Max Dowman too. We'll get to Max Dowman in a second, but you know, kind of with the new players, I thought Zubimendi looked just, you know, really settled already, and already that, you know, that one touch, two touch, quick passing that he has in his bag. He was showing that off, you know, just keeping things moving really quickly. And he was playing the ball through the lines on a pretty regular basis. I saw some Liverpool fan trying to make fun of him and call him back pass Mendy or whatever. It was a pretty lame nickname, but I don't remember that many back passes, honestly, from Zubimendi. He was very progressive. He even played a few really great balls in behind Milan's defense towards our attackers, and I thought overall he had a really impressive game. And then Norgard came in. It's funny, when he first started playing, he looked a little rusty physically, but I think he got warmed up and honestly appeared kind of spry to me. But yeah, I think his passing was really good. I think his physicality was there, made some great tackles, and you didn't really see that much of a drop off between him and Zubimendi. So I'm pretty excited about that pair playing for us at the 6. And then, you know, on top of that was Kepa, and he played the second half. And I gotta say, you know, this is no disrespect to David Raya, but if you came back from, you know, getting yourself refreshments or whatever, and you missed the first couple minutes of the second half, I'm not sure you would have noticed that Raya had been substituted off unless you were really, really paying attention to the goalkeeper. Because, yeah, I mean, he plays in a very similar style to Raya. He's great on the ball, and, you know, he's got a lot of different passes in his locker. And yeah, I thought he came in and did really well, and 3 saves during the penalty shootout, which I think that's really impressive, right? So there's that as well. I'm now kind of in a place where, you know, whereas last season and kind of the season before, once we realized what an upgrade Raya was on Ramsdale, every time Raya would kind of throw himself into the mix, into a challenge, and, you know, really kind of put himself in harm's way to get the ball, I would always panic a little bit internally the last couple seasons. But now, you know, it's really great to know that if something should happen that prevents Raya from playing for a little while, I think we'll be fine. Honestly, I think we'll be just fine. And then on top of that was Max Dowman and Marley Salmon. the two kind of next up from the Hale End Academy. And I thought Marley Salmon was really good. He kind of held his own, and he does remind me a little of Saliba stylistically. Very mature for his age, so I thought he did well, had some good passes. But Dauman is just another level, and it's really wild, to see Saka come through and kind of surrounded by Smith Rowe and Nelson, and then Winery and Lewis Skelly come through last year, and kind of the excitement was ratcheted up a little bit based on how great those two were, and obviously Saka has gone on to become one of the best players in the world, and just to see Dauman and what he's capable of at 15 years old. I think the expectation and kind of the waiting with bated breath has gone up another level, even from Winery and Lewis Skelly. So he came on, he was dribbling at players, he was trying things, he was taking shots, he was attempting crosses, he was being very direct. He was twisting and turning and spinning past his man. I think he showed some pretty impressive physicality for his age. He's very quick. But at the same time, I think there was some maturity to his game as well. He didn't try to force it at times, whenever the pass wasn't completely on, he was happy to just kind of give it back to the player who passed it to him, or just kind of play an easy pass laterally and just keep the ball moving, as opposed to, trying something risky and losing the ball. So I would be shocked if he didn't get, 3 digits worth of minutes this season. I think he really is going to prove himself to be that good. So that's exciting. And then outside of that, I think everyone else looked pretty good, which is crazy because, you kind of, I feel like I'm still used to preseason games, especially the first couple, showing how rusty players are. But I think kind of we're at an era now where, the competition is so fierce, and the level of professionalism and the standards that players are held to is so high that these guys came back from their vacations just, a touch off in terms of their stamina and their physical fitness. So yeah, I think everyone really looked good. There are obviously a couple players who I wish I could have seen more from. I on our TikTok channel, I did kind of a thing that on a little recurring segment I'm gonna be doing this season on our TikTok called Ballers and Fallers. And for me, the faller was our left-hand side of attack, particularly Martinelli and Trossard, and just kind of the dynamics there. It just looks like more of the same as we've seen for kind of the last season and a half now. So, they both had really good moments. Martinelli kind of forced his way through to the byline and, played in a pretty threatening cross. Trossard tried a couple shots. One of them I remember from long range, tested the keeper, but just there isn't that directness, that guile on the left wing that I feel like you get on the right. And then speaking of the right, Ben White, I think he's showing how much we missed him last season. So yeah, his chemistry with Saka continues to be off the charts. He played some great balls in behind for Saka, overlapped very well. There's even one moment where he kind of put himself in a central position. He was almost playing center forward, and he, I forget who tried to, but someone attempted to play him in behind, and the ball was just a little bit too far for him to get to. He's going to add a lot this season, and we really missed him last season. So yeah, all in all, very positive first match, and obviously we're playing Newcastle on Sunday, and Newcastle have a bit of a situation brewing because Alexander Isak has apparently informed them that he wishes to leave, and that's all the journalists are saying that now, including David Ornstein, Fabrizio Romano. So it looks like he wants to go, and the timing is so weird to me because Liverpool have just signed Ekitike. Victor Gyökeres is doing his medical as we speak. I don't get why Isak has waited until now to try to force the agenda. And kind of the prevailing theory on the line is that he has been, I guess, encouraged by Liverpool, or he has encouraged Liverpool and decided that that's where he wants to go. And kind of a lot of people seem to be accepting that Liverpool have another 130, 150 million spend in them for one player. And if that's true, that's scary, right? Because now you're adding Isak to an attack that consists of Salah and Verts and Ekatike and your Gakpo, and you're probably going to have one of Nunez or Diaz in there, and then behind them you have McAllister who can chip in, Szoboszlai who can also contribute in that manner. Sounds like Harvey Elliott might be out the door, but and of course, they've got the bombing fullbacks and Frimpong and Kirkes to kind of add to that. So it's really scary, especially thinking about what they can do offensively. If they do get Isak, I mean, they're going to score a truckload of goals. They'll blow past 100 goals on the season. Safe to say, and that's terrifying in a way. My voice even just broke thinking of that. Yeah, no, it's terrifying to think of that, because that's legitimately a super team especially in the top half of it. So people are understandably freaking out, but there is a lot of retconning going on, because people are kind of using this as an opportunity to poo-poo what Arsenal have done this summer and kind of chastise the club for not trying harder to sign a player who was easily going to cost 120 to 150 million pounds. And I just think that is not intellectually consistent with how we should be looking at this, because if anything, I think it's an indictment of Edu's last summer window with us, because Calafiori is really the only permanent solution that I think we acquired in that window. Everything else, right? Marino is kind of fourth choice left 8. Honestly, he's kind of a bargain brand battering ram version of Havertz, which doesn't sound that charitable, but it is useful. But the thing is, right, he's not going to be a star of this team. He has Rice ahead of him in that position. If we sign an Eze, I'd imagine that he's someone who's going to compete for that spot. Havertz, I think the prospect of him playing as a left 8, especially in tandem with Gyökeres at center forward, I think that's really interesting as well. So, and you even might have Ethan Nwaneri figuring for minutes there, or maybe Miles Lewis-Skelly in certain team configurations, right? So Marino at best is the fourth choice left 8 there. So he's just, despite his heroics at the end of last season, he's just not looking like the most efficient use of funds there. And then, Sterling and Neto, not really permanent solutions to begin with, but were they solutions at all? So it really left us with so much to do this summer. And while I think guessing what a transfer budget is for big clubs is kind of a fool's errand these days, but you can imagine that we had a finite amount of resources to use, and we had a lot of positions to address, right? We had to get a backup keeper. We had to get a backup defender for the right side, especially with Tomiyasu leaving. We had to get 2 6s with Jorginho and Partey out the door. We needed a left winger. We probably needed backup for Saka. And of course, we needed a striker, right? That's a lot of positions to fill. And if you go spend 150 million on that on one player, how much money do you leave yourself to address those other several positions that matter too? I think people are kind of forgetting that the thing that's really done us in the last few seasons under Arteta is a lack of rotation and kind of making and like overplaying players, essentially making them play more minutes than they should be. Excuse me. So while it is annoying and it hurts in a way to see Isak, decide to leave Newcastle now, and it's going to hurt a little bit more to see him join Liverpool. I don't know. It's tough for me to be especially heartbroken about it because it's just one of those things where the timing just didn't really work out, and the chips didn't fall how you needed them to for that to happen. And then kind of on the other side of that, if Liverpool do sign Isak and they do commit that amount of money to him, right? We're talking about a player who's going to come in for 150 million again, British record, and a player who's probably going to demand upwards of 300,000 a week in terms of wages. Do they have the room to do anything else financially? Are they going to be able to bring in a defender? Are they going to be able to bring in maybe another 6 or something like that? It's hard to see that, right? And if they are able to do that, you're talking about a £500 million transfer window, which is pretty unheard of outside the likes of Chelsea and City. And I don't even think City have ever really done that. So yeah, this would just be unprecedented, and I'd be really curious to see how Liverpool or FSG are making that happen. But if they do decide to get Isak, I think it's pretty likely that would be the end of their business, and that means that you are relying on a Van Dijk in his 30s, well into his 30s, somewhat injury-prone Konate, and a Ryan Gravenberch who is good as a 6, but he's not on that Rice, Caicedo, Rodri level. You're kind of relying on all those guys to stay fit. And those are 3 singular points of failure, because what happens if one of them gets injured? Who are you going to put in there? Endo? Okay. Maybe McAllister at 6. I don't think that's completely viable. And the options behind Van Dijk and Konate at center back for Liverpool are very weak. As much as Liverpool fans want to rate their youngsters, it's just not all that convincing, really. So, and the way that they're going to be playing, even, I think, is going to put a lot of stress on those guys to begin with, right? Because again, you're talking about a team that's going to commit 6 guys in attack, probably, which means that you're going to have Konate and Van Dijk on an island with Gravenberch open to transition, and this is a league that is really leaning into transition attacks these days. So I just don't think it's all that wise from Liverpool, but it sounds like they really want him. So we'll see what happens with that. But I'm not, once you really kind of look at it, once you really put it under the microscope, I just don't think it's one of those things that's cause to throw in the towel in August, basically, and say that the league's over, Liverpool have won it, what's the point of trying, Arsenal should sack everybody who didn't try to sign Isak, yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, that's kind of where I am with that. We'll probably talk about that more on Saturday with John and Drew, and we'll also talk about the Milan match and kind of more in depth look at our takeaways from that. But that's how I'm feeling at the moment. Apologies for rambling on, but I just kind of wanted to put that out there while the conversation was still fresh. So thanks for listening to me murder 19 minutes. Anyway, I'm going to cut to my chat with AJ about Gabriel Heinze, and I hope you enjoy. And I'm joined now by AJ from Atlanta United Fan TV. AJ, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. I just found out a minute ago that you're an Arsenal fan. So, really excited to kind of like even further contextualize this conversation behind it. But I mean, first of all, while you're here, how are you feeling about the team kind of going into the next season? And in terms of like how last season went and the summer signings that we've made so far, and kind of what kind of trajectory we look like we're on. Grant, where are you at regarding all that?
I'm definitely optimistic. We still have some transfers that are yet to be announced, and definitely it kind of leaves some fans probably very uneasy. I'm talking about Gyökeres, obviously. And Andrea Berta, I think, has done a really good job of getting the other moves, positions filled that, definitely you don't want to wait until the end of the window because we've seen how that goes. And yeah, you want to have players ready for a preseason. I know we've seen Wenger wait until, pretty much deadline day and, like the last hour. And, we got an Ozil at one point, but otherwise, some of the other times we only had Czech in one window.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's how you set yourself up for some failure. But I think we've done a good job of, refilling the coffers, basically with Norgard, kind of with also, completely blanking on our new midfielder because everybody
Zubamendi,
and everybody kind of slept on that a little bit as well because they're like, it's like, this window we're not doing things fast enough, and it's like Zubamendi was done before the transfer window was even started. So
I feel like he was done like end of February, basically, or sorry, beginning of February, end of
March,
January. Like it was quick. So yeah,
right, yeah, and so. The midfield is restocked. I'm excited about our new midfield of Zubamendi, Rice, Odegaard. Noni Madueke is definitely he's dividing opinion. I think there's a lot of good qualities that he brings that we don't currently have, and especially from I think the left side, a ball carrier that can really try to attack, shoot a lot. He has one of the most shots in the league as far as a winger. And then plus, a backup to Saka where, Saka probably won't have to play most of the cup games. And that will be great. And then Nwaneri will be able to be that backup to Odegaard, to possibly Rice as well if we want to play, with 2 10s. And it's the striker position that whether you wanted Gyökeres, whether you wanted somebody else, it's he does offer something else to this squad that we don't have as well, which is ball striking to that degree because he can hit it from anywhere, right foot and left foot, and we saw pretty much what he did against a couple of the best center backs in the world. Against us, where in the pretty much 80th, 90th minute, he was still running hard and trying to make things happen when his team was down 5-1. Like it's so it's definitely I think it's promising if we can get that over the line. Sporting has other ambitions, so we can just kind of chalk that up to them being assholes, really. But because if they derail it, I mean, it's bad for them. I mean, it's bad for Gyökeres, and it's probably bad for us too, unfortunately, because it puts us in a really bad negotiating position for any other striker that we might want to go for. So
especially with like Ekatike off the table, and Šeško, we've already been quoted a high price.
Right.
I'm still confident that Gyökeres happens. So I think this is just Sporting trying to look like they won the deal at the end, but we'll see.
Exactly, because there is some posturing that they have to do for their fans because basically they're being held hostage, which is fantastic for us. But it's like Gyökeres is just like, I only want Arsenal. Like there might be a Man U link, there might be Saudi Arabia links. Doesn't matter. I want Arsenal, and that's going to ingratiate yourself to the fan base that you're joining, but definitely you're going to burn all the bridges behind you. And so, that'll be interesting, but he will be persona non grata there if we ever face them in Champions League, no doubt, if he does come. But, and so I think there's good promise for, if we can get these over the line, I think there's, a possibility for us to really shout at, a title run. But it's just, obviously we have also to contend with Liverpool and Man City that have definitely, gotten better. And Liverpool, I think, especially, I think same with us. We pretty much didn't make moves so that we could make these big moves. And, I think we, with Eze, possibly with Simons. I mean, it's there's other possibilities of attackers that can be brought in that I'm definitely excited about because I think it will bring different elements that we haven't seen for Arsenal. That it will be, dare I say, it could bring us into kind of the excitement of how attacking we were maybe in 2022, 2023.
Yeah. No, it's it's funny, right? Because we're used to the Arteta tenure being like a very defensive focused one, right? And kind of his main priorities have always been structure off the ball and work rate. So I think if things pan out the way they look like they will, we could finally see an Arsenal, maybe for the first time under Arteta, an Arsenal that's really that attacks freely and is actually really interesting to watch offensively. I feel like a lot of our final third play is quite choreographed at this point. So to bring in guys like Gyökeres and Madueke, maybe as a I think that's going to kind of push us in a direction where there's a little bit more improvisation, a little bit more flair and creativity. Chaos. Yeah, more chaos. I think that's the big one. That's kind of I think that's the best way to describe it. Just a chaos, unpredictability, players really taking matters into their own hands instead of just I'm going to dribble up to here and then I'm going to turn around and pass the ball back and vice versa. So exactly. We'll see how that works. But kind of in addition to these players that we've brought in, we also have a new signing in terms of the assistant manager that we've just brought in, who you're familiar with, Gabriel Heinze, who managed Atlanta United at one point, although it was a very brief tenure, as I understand it. But just how do I put this? How would you describe Heinze's tenure at Atlanta United? And, just kind of what were the issues while he was there?
Yeah, well, this is a loaded question because there's so much. And this was like 4 years ago, so I'm trying to dredge stuff up that I've buried for sure. But I think larger part, his tenure was marred with not only his ghosts from the closet, really, I guess, for lack of a better term, and his record. I think it was 2-7-4 as far as wins, draws, and losses. Not great. At one point, we were winless in 8, and somehow we've gotten worse than that, unfortunately. But we've since had more stretches of that. But I think that's not really Heinze's fault. It's more that there's a lot of mismanagement from the front office. But Heinze, I think what he brought, at least what his ideas were tactically, were, I think, in theory, smart. It was, a coach that Marcelo Bielsa disciple, a coach that, really values, pressing from the front, working hard, training a lot. And, I think that's probably more of the Argentinian thing a little bit. But he also, it's the other flip side of it. He's kind of a prickly personality, definitely a winner at places that he's been in terms of as a player, but as a coach, it's left a little bit of a mixed bag where, I think he, as far as players go, generally as the maybe younger variety, they feel like they have a lot to learn from him. So that's good. And it's the star players, I feel like, that he might have some butt-ins, some run-ins with, because, it's, with our star striker at the time, Jose Martinez, who was coming back from an injury. It was, he thought basically he was killing our players because we, at one point, I think it was there would be 3 or 4 a.m. Almost well, hey, we're going to practice today. And so we're going to practice in the morning. And it's you can't just tell your players on the whim that you're just going to, have a training session that morning. MLSPA, the Players Association has a say in that, kind of like workers' rights to that degree of not overworking your players. And he just kind of ignored it, and he was just like, So I think he will have less say, and he will come into a lot more of an established setup with Arsenal with Mikel Arteta. So I think he will probably be reined in a lot more. Although you're already seeing some photos with him. I don't know if it's like scolding, but he's like he's looking at Odegaard. He's talking to Saka, and I mean it seems a little like, okay, well if it's beneficial, if it lights a fire underneath them, which I don't think it's these two players don't need fires underneath them. They're absolutely the most motivated players already. So but I think maybe with the younger guys, maybe with the guys that we brought on the Asia tour, I'm stoked for that, because the Max Dowmans, the Molly Salmons, those guys, I think will really benefit from somebody like him. I just hope he realizes he's not the head coach, and so he's gonna need to rein it in. And maybe those that are looking for that Carlos Cuesta replacement, like for like, it's not him. I mean, he's definitely. I think he's there because basically Arteta has been looking for someone that like a Pep Blinders that he was trying to get from Man City, and kind of the pressing coach, and them being buddies from PSG, and I think that's where we've been courting him for a minute. Like he's been rumored for probably over a year, and I think ultimately having that guy that can already kind of, we have a pretty decent press, but to improve it, I think would be immense, especially with some of the newer guys that come in. I think that's where Arteta maybe can not have to be as hands on and allow one of his assistants to really, I think, take those reins, kind of, I think, impose that expertise that we know at least he's good for in that regard.
Yeah, it's I'm glad you brought up like the photos and Carlos Cuesta, right? Because again, these are just candid pictures that they took during training sessions, but it's really funny to see the look on Saka's face, and I think it might have been Gabriel that I was talking to as well, in addition to those two. I feel like it was Saka and someone else, but not Odegaard, who were just looking at Heinze while he was instructing them and just being like, why is this guy yelling at me? Like, and again, it's just photos, so like, there's nothing really to take from it, but I just thought it was interesting. But yeah, I think that might be the most intriguing piece of all of this, right? Which is the change from, because obviously, Carlos Cuesta is gone, he's coaching Parma now, but the kind of deciding to replace Cuesta, this nurturing, forgiving, very like kind presence in the first team staff, to replace him with like you said, a guy like Heinze who's like prickly and intense and demanding, and maybe I'll put it habitual line stepper in terms of what the rules are. I think that's really interesting in terms of deciding that's the guy to bring in at this point in time. And I think it does maybe indicate a direction that Arsenal are trying to head in, as a club, right? Because we have Mikel Arteta, who is just ridiculously intense already. I know people who've met him and they've said from firsthand experience, like, he's all business. He's not there to make friends. So you already have him kind of running the show there. You've brought Andrea Berta, who I think is very much cut from the same cloth, all business, very intense figure. And you have Gabriel Heinze, who, again, same sort of personality, and now we're aiming to bring in guys like Victor Gyökeres and Noni Madueke, who, especially Gyökeres, again, just like these really determined, dogged personalities who are just more desperate for success than they are for air. So, do you see it that way as well? And, is that maybe a direction that we should be heading in, or do you maybe have concerns about that if that is the case?
It's a good question. I mean, I think the players that you just mentioned, Gyökeres, Madueke, I think they both have cited Cristiano Ronaldo as as an idol, as someone that they look up to, and we all know like how serious he is in his work rate, his work ethic. So that's not a bad thing per se. Obviously, Ronaldo isn't necessarily known as the friends with everyone, maybe the most unselfish person, but not maybe the most team player per se. But no doubt, wherever he's been, he's won a lot of stuff. So with that, with Heinze being brought in, I think. Yeah, he brings that kind of mentality as well, and obviously he, knew Ronaldo as well. So they play together. It was some sort of, that rubs off. I think that will have to be balanced per se. Maybe Albert will have to be that other guy to soften up a little bit. I don't know. We haven't really heard his personality per se, but I believe he is Dutch, so they're very blunt and straightforward as well. So it's like, well, somebody in this backroom staff is going to need to, be kind of the soft voice, the mom, if you will. Someone needs to, take the someone underneath their wing and be that. But maybe it is where Mikel feels like he can be that guy now more so. So instead, of being the bad guy per se, he can possibly be a little bit more dynamic and kind of be the different voice and see different sides of Arteta. But I think it could be the solution to us getting over the hump, because there is a bit of it where I'm concerned if Heinze is like, okay, yeah, well, these guys need to train more because they're just not, they're not picking up what I'm trying to, teach them and whatnot. And that I worry about because, this squad is, while, we're trying to get 2 players for every position. We're trying to, you still, you have drop off when you get to, your depth. And I think it's something that as well, like, Arsenal is just a matter of we know what it feels like to have a lot of players go down. I mean, just this past year, but just in our history, and most recently, obviously with Tomiyasu, with Wilshere, with Diaby. I mean, these are players that they're like the great what ifs, and I don't want any more what ifs. I don't want any more. Players that they would have been so great if they had stayed healthy, or maybe when they stayed, or when they finally got healthy, they had a fantastic year, but we finished second and then they moved to Man U. So it's
so you're worried about Heinze potentially overworking the players to the point where they start picking up injuries.
Yeah, if he influences Arteta at some point to we need another training session. Oh, we need just an extra, team wide. Everyone needs to be here and, run a little bit more. It's just like, there's for us anyway, he has some similarities to like Tata Martino, who was our first head coach in our history for 2 years. They kind of run in some like very similar circles of, Bielsa tactics and discipline and training. And we had some star players go down with hamstring injuries late in the season, and that's never good. That's really, really difficult to come back from, especially late in the season. So I think us having maybe the buffer of some more players, some also, what Heinze had done in some instances that I think is talked about as well is that he will cater a lineup to specific opposition that we're facing, and when that can be done really correctly and well, then you'll maybe see the like Timber and White being switched off for different game states. Maybe for Madueke and Martinelli, if those are our only options on the left. But and as well, with Havertz, with Gyökeres, if he does come, I think obviously they both offer very different things at striker, but they might be able to play together. They might be able to, maybe it's just Rice at the 6. And maybe as well, maybe it's if we get Jarell Hato, maybe it's that we're Miles, he's not the only left back that's that we're going to be using per se, because Calafiori might be an option, but we don't have that overlapping left-sided player as a left back in this side, and we need that kind of dynamic. We need some variety, and I think if we are able to have different types of players for different types of game states, it'll make us really, really dangerous. And we've seen where Arteta is sometimes a little reticent, but also hamstrung with the options, because we basically we have like 5 defenders to choose from that are actually healthy, or at some point we have 4 left backs, so we have to use them at left wing. So it's like it's hopefully it doesn't come to that point.
It is. I kind of feel bad for Arteta, right? Because last season we finally saw him start subbing Saka off early in games, and then not only does Saka miss 4 months, but we have basically an injury crisis the entire season. But I do think that's a really interesting point, because we are making all these signings in terms of obviously there's Kepa, but kind of in terms of outfield signings, you have Mosquera, Zubamendi, Norgard, Madueke. Hopefully Gyökeres gets wrapped up soon, right? So, and if we go for Eze as well, and it seems like we're looking at Eze and Xavi Simons, that tells me that we're trying to have different options for different game states. Right. So to hear you say that Heinze like to kind of tweak teams based on who we're up against, I do think that is really encouraging, because that's something personally I would like to see from us, where if we are playing these low block teams, I'd like to see White and Calafiori at right back and left back, right? With maybe, maybe instead of Rice at left center mid, maybe you do like an Eze or a Winery, or maybe you want to put in a Havertz there to kind of play second striker to Gyökeres. And then maybe when we're playing a team who's more likely to take the game to us a little bit, you can play Madueke at right wing, and you can play Martinelli at left wing, Gyökeres at striker, and just kind of have 3 guys who can run in behind. And then of course with the big 6 games, right? Rice in midfield, Timber and Miles Lewis-Skelly locking down things on either side of the defense. So that's really interesting to kind of think about. And do you think kind of bringing in Heinze as we are making these acquisitions, and kind of with Berta around, who's willing to bring in different options for the team, do you think that suggests kind of more of a synergy at this point within the Arsenal hierarchy?
I think, it's really early to tell if there's synergy quite yet, but it does seem like, Arteta has his guys that he wants, and he, obviously told Berta, because Madueke definitely seems like, his guy. And Gyökeres seems more like Berta's guy. And, with that, I think there's probably some concessions being made, which, I think that's the beauty of it, is that the hierarchy there, it looks like they're collaborating versus maybe just one singular, maybe not authoritative, but it definitely seemed like Arteta, even with Edu, Edu seems like, okay, he might have some say, but I think as a more, dominant personality, I think it was Arteta, making a lot of the stronger overtures of who he wants versus Edu, who, I think we saw with last season when it wasn't Sesko, we didn't do anything. And with Berta, it's like, he's really trying to make sure that there's a couple of options. And especially, I think he plays the media very well in that he will leak. Whether it's him or not, but somebody leaks out of the Arsenal front office or the board, whichever, whatever you want to call it. But basically, that Berta, he will make sure that there's not just one option, and that's when you can have the best buying, the most leverage in buying versus, you're just like, well, this is our only option, and nobody else knows who else we're going for, and which that was fine for some part of it because I think Arteta really wanted to keep a really close lid on a lot of that. He at one point he was like, we found out who the guy was, and we're gonna make sure it doesn't happen again. And it's like, I mean, good and bad, but I think ultimately it showed that okay, well, we don't have any buying leverage in some instances, and I think Sesko probably would have come to us. There was that gentleman's agreement, but then we look what does that mean? It means really F all.
And Gyökeres did a gentleman's agreement too, and like look at what a pain in the ass Sporting are being about it. My message, if you're a professional footballer and you're watching this, don't do gentleman's agreements. Get that shit in writing, please.
Right,
it makes your life way easier. Yeah.
Right. But also Sporting, they just, I think whether it was the sporting director or the owner, I forget which, but there was just a change. And so that plays a part into it where, it's not the same person. So that gentleman's agreement goes away when that person you talk to goes away. So that makes sense. Does it suck? Yeah. Because it seems like it's over a fee of maybe 5 million. That's it's just like
I heard reports suggesting it was 2.5 million euros at this point, and I was just like, come on.
And that's giving some Luis Suarez vibes there when we offered Liverpool 41 plus 1 or whatever it was. It's just like that's I mean that's going to make us look bad to a degree, but I don't think it really has anything to do with us. But the internet warriors are going to say whatever they want to say, of course, and try to banter us.
Yeah, no, people, Arsenal fans will find a reason to be mad if they want to be mad, and rival fans will find a reason to banter us if they want to banter us. So, it is what it is. In terms of the amount of influence, right? Because as you said, Heinze and Arteta go way back from when Arteta was, a really young player at PSG, 2 decades ago at this point.
Right.
Arteta helped bed Heinze and Pochettino into that PSG squad because they weren't great at speaking French. And Arteta was obviously fluent in Spanish and fluent in French. So at least that's the story that Heinze tells. But, just in terms of that close relationship between the two of them, how much influence do you think Heinze is going to have here? Do you think Heinze is going to be able to really kind of steer Arteta towards, significant changes in how he manages the team? Or is he really just going to be more of like a sounding board to bounce ideas off of?
I hope it's the latter because I think Heinze has some very, very bold and, strong ideas that might need to be bedded in slowly because it's some of them are very very forward thinking, which is great, but can be, I think a little detrimental at times if it's a little too off the wall, and if it's a little maybe just if it fatigues our players, which I think is a very, very big issue. Because we'll have a lot of competitions already we don't need to overtrain our players. Our players are very much trained within the system already. It's the maybe newer players that come in that will need to learn the system. But I think we've seen with some of them that they can bed in fairly quickly to a degree. But yeah, I think it's hoping that he just is that sounding board where maybe during a match where it's like, hey, I'm noticing this, I'm noticing that. What if we did this? Yeah. And maybe Arteta takes it in tow, and we'll make the final decision. But I also it's Heinze being older than Arteta, maybe it might influence him a little bit more, and I also worry about that. So it's I just hope that, like I said at the top, hope he reins it in, and he knows that he's the assistant coach.
Well, I just thought about this actually. How do you think Heinze is going to take to, maybe being shot down on a regular basis or being disagreed with, and kind of maybe not explicitly reminded, but reminded that he's the second in command at best, right? And he's not actually in charge. Do you think that's going to be an issue for him, or do you think that's something that he'll be willing to deal with in a healthy manner?
Yeah. I mean, I don't even think would be, second in command. I mean, Stuyvenberg, I think, is the second in command for sure. I mean, so when if Arteta gets a touchline ban, well, it's going to be Stuyvenberg. But and then it'll be fascinating because Heinze is just as animated as Arteta on the sidelines. So maybe it might be better where just like Arteta, he can probably just kind of be more chill this season. And, Heinze is the guy, popping his head off, and, Arteta will just kind of put his arm into the thing and just like, okay, it's fine, I'll hold you back. But, I think ultimately, the Heinze thing, it's I'm trying to remember your question now, actually. I think I talked everything but your question.
just in terms of like, how he'll take to, being disagreed with and kind of realizing that he's not in charge. But it sounds like.
So I mean, I mean, I think he probably. It seems like their relationship is really good. And especially, if, in some circles, Heinze is known as a prick, and Arteta, in some circles, sometimes known as a prick. And, sometimes the personalities, they just match really well. If they're too alpha dog, that's where I worry. And, Heinze does kind of come across as that a little bit, that disciplinarian, the guy that, wants to be, the top guy. I just hope that he can rein it in. I mean, I think hopefully that friendship prevails versus, the working relationship per se.
Yeah. And the thing is, right. Again, they've played together. They probably have been in situations where they've had to disagree on things before. So I'm relatively optimistic. And I don't at the end of the day, I don't think Arteta would have brought Heinze in if he thought it was going to very foreseeably lead to those kinds of issues. But, again, very strong personality. When you put strong personalities in a room together in a very high pressure environment, sometimes you see fireworks, but hopefully he just is, our own version of Jason Tyndall, who just snatches the attention, maybe rehabilitates Arteta's image in the media a little bit. And I won't say I'm excited, but I'm very intrigued to see what happens. It should be an interesting season. Tell you what, before we get out of here, which player on the Arsenal team do you think is going to surprise us the most this coming season?
Ooh, I think I'll pick two.
Okay.
Because that's a hard one. I think Zubamendi because one, I don't think as much excitement as there should be for a player of his ilk. We pretty much picked up the best defensive midfielder on the market, and one that also Liverpool wanted. And he spurned them for us, and I think he will springboard the forward line. I think he'll connect our lines better because he's got a lot of on-the-ball ability, but it's the kind of connecting passes. It's the kind of forward thinking. It's the there's a little bit of a difference in Zubamendi's game there, and I think he'll bring a little bit more of a defensive awareness that Thomas Partey didn't really as much near the end of his playing time with us. So I think that will be a huge thing to allow us to maybe move Odegaard a little bit further up so that he's not having to drop all the way back and just try to dictate the play where then he can't really do anything in the final third because he's not in those areas. We basically had a very vacated basically zone 14, and it was just like why we had some anemic games or games that we couldn't really put that stamp into the game. And then I think Madueke is going to surprise some people. I mean, I think he's got some qualities that are slept on because he's a Chelsea player. Yes, he's like the 9th or 10th Chelsea player in the last 5 years. Yes, it's not exciting to help Chelsea's PSR dreams, but it is kind of, I think, a player that will allow us to not only rest Saka a lot more, but I think bring the different qualities that we need on the left as well in some of the moments where, maybe we need those crosses from the left. And, he might be that player that can, if we're chasing a game, if we need to go route one, okay, well, Madueke, Havertz, let's play that game. And, if we need a goal, let's see what happens. So, there's that. Maybe a cheeky third one with Havertz with how much he's bulked up. I'm definitely excited to see what he can do against defenses and all that.
I'm pretty excited about Havertz. Havertz looks jacked these days. So, I think us going for a striker really lit a fire under him, and he decided to try to become the best center forward he can be. So we'll see how that goes. But I mean, all in all, I think it's a very exciting time to be an Arsenal fan, and hopefully Heinze adds to that. And if not, the signings definitely will. But AJ, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about Heinze and just kind of giving us the inside scoop on how he acts, kind of his tactical ideas, and what he'll bring to the team. So thanks so much for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, and AJ, where can the listeners find you?
Yeah, so you can find us everywhere, either as ATL UTD Fan TV or Atlanta United Fan TV, spelled out. Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, everywhere.
Yeah. And if you're an Atlanta United fan, you're watching this, check them out. I know there's at least a couple of you, so get to it. But again, AJ, thanks so much, and hope to have you back on here soon.
Cheers. Thanks.
Okay. Well, it was a really fun chat, like I told AJ, and thanks to him for coming on. You can check them out at Atlanta at ATL UTD Fan TV on Twitter, and looking forward to having him back on in the future. So, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for being here. I hope that was informative. I certainly learned a lot. And like I said at the top of the pod, we will be back on Saturday. Pod will either come out Saturday or maybe early on Sunday to chat about any further developments in this Isak saga. and talk about the Milan match. Maybe we'll, kind of preview Newcastle as well. Is it worth it to preview preseason matches? I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, thanks for being here. So you can follow me on Twitter at Shamsdale. You can follow the pod at NotThatGooner on Twitter and at NotThatGooner on Blue Sky. And you can also check us out on YouTube at Not That Kind of Gooner. If you do that, please do subscribe. We are inching closer to 100 subscribers, so that would be really cool if you could help us get over the line. And then we're on Instagram and TikTok at Not That Kind of Gooner. So if you could check us out there, that'd be cool as well. And we're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So if you're listening on either of those, please do leave us a 5-star review. It really does help put the pod out there to more people and kind of increase our exposure so that, more and more people are listening to the pod, and we'd really appreciate that. So thank you again for being here with us. We will be back with you this weekend, but until then, keep your mind out of the gunner and take care, and we will talk to you soon. Bye. Bye.
Secret Gooner. All right, I'm a Gooner. Oh, I love you.
Already! With a minute to go. Santi Cazorla! Oh, Saka!